What if the most powerful weapon in any competition is not a secret technique or years of experience? What if the real advantage is having no technique at all? Today, we are diving deep into a concept that sounds like magic, but is actually a brutal competitive edge. It is the single most important legacy Bruce Lee left the world. We call it mindset reset. Most people see Bruce Lee as just a movie star or a legendary fighter. But true innovators look at his logic. He did not dominate the world because he mastered a secret style. He dominated because he had the courage to throw away every style, every pattern, and every routine he ever learned. If you feel stuck right now, or if you feel like your hard work is being replaced by more creative people, pay attention. What we are about to discuss will rewrite your internal operating system. Let us start with a basic question. Why is it that the more we learn, the more average we seem to become? In modern cognitive science, there is a concept called cognitive loading. Think of your brain as having a limited processing bandwidth. When you cram it with ready-made formulas and rigid rules, there is zero room left for original thoughts. Bruce Lee faced this exact problem. Back then, the martial arts world was obsessed with traditions. Everyone was a prisoner to their own style. But Lee discovered a hard truth. If you only learn how to punch, that is muscle memory. But if you only learn how to punch in one specific style, that is a mental shackle. Why? Because in a real fight, the opponent does not follow your script. Real life is exactly the same. Market competition, career shifts, and complex projects never have a standard answer key. Real innovation is not about building a second floor on an old house. It is about tearing the house down to see what the foundation is actually made of. This brings us to the core principle of deconstruction. What does deconstruction actually look like in real life? Imagine a complex mechanical watch. An average person sees a tool that tells time. A deconstructor sees gears, springs, and levers. When Bruce Lee looked at martial arts, he did not see sacred moves. He saw the physical limits of human movement. He realized that every fight comes down to just two things: distance and timing. No matter what your style is, your only goal is to bridge that distance and hit the target. Everything else is just noise. This logic applies perfectly to your work. If you are a marketer, you might spend all day obsessing over algorithms or templates, but those are just styles. If you only focus on those, you are a slave to the platform. But if you reset your mind and go back to first principles, you realize marketing is really about one thing. It is about building trust to trigger action. Once you master the trust variable, the platform does not matter anymore. You stop carrying a heavy toolbox and start carrying a scalpel that can dissect any problems. You've probably heard the famous quote, "Be water, my friend." It is a beautiful metaphor, but it is actually a deeply practical strategy for mental clarity. Water is the softest substance, yet it is the most powerful because it has no fixed shape. When you pour water into a cup, it becomes the cup. In the study of complex systems, this is known as high environmental fitness. Most of us approach problems with a massive, pre-existing shape. When your boss gives you a task, your first thought is usually, "How did I do this last time?" Or, "How do others do it?" That preset thought is your bottle. It limits you. If the environment changes and your old method fails, you feel anxious. Mindset Reset asks you to shatter that mold. Do not try to be a better bottle. Become the water. This requires a constant internal audit. Ask yourself, is this decision based on current facts or just an old habit? There is a practical technique for this called cognitive segregation. Whenever you start a task, force yourself to pause for 3 seconds. Ask yourself, if I had zero experience and all my memories were gone, what would be the most logical first step right now? This simple pause cuts the wires of your autopilot. Many people claim to have 10 years of experience, but they really just have 1 year of experience repeated 10 times. That repetition is a mental blockage. It makes you rigid and easy to break. In his training, Lee would intentionally break his students' rhythm. He knew that true power comes from an extreme awareness of the present moment, not a perfect rehearsal of the past. When your mind is cleared, you start seeing connections that others miss. Think of knowledge as loose beads. Most people try to string them into the specific necklaces they were taught in school. But a person who has reset their mind focuses on the beads themselves. Because the beads are loose, they can be rearranged into whatever the moment requires. This is what we call cross-disciplinary innovation. Lee combined the footwork of dance, the rhythm of fencing, and the power of boxing. At the time, people called it heresy. Today, we recognize it as the perfect integration of underlying logics. He could fuse these unrelated fields because he realized that at the foundational level, they are all the same. Dancing is about moving the center of gravity. Fencing is about capturing timing. Boxing is about kinetic energy transfer. When you look at the world through these fundamental truths, you realize there are no styles. There are only laws of nature. The hardest part is identifying the second-hand information lurking in your brain. From childhood, we are fed prepackaged data. Teachers give us formulas. Parents give us common sense. Society gives us rules. These form walls. Lee noted that most people spend their lives imitating others. They imitate fashion, success stories, and even dreams. This creates a false sense of security, but it kills your intuition. The first step to a total reset is self-dissection. You have to act like a judge and cross-examine every thought. Did I learn this through my own experience? Or did I just read it in a book? Was it pushed on me by an authority figure? If a thought cannot stand up to this scrutiny, throw it away. It might be painful to realize that your values are built on thin air, but you must clear the weeds before the truth can grow. When this clearing happens, you might feel a sense of panic. Without your old maps and habits, you feel lost. So, what guides your next move? Lee's answer was simple. When you stop relying on preset moves, you must trade that energy for something higher. We call this extreme feedback. In cognitive science, this is known as a closed-loop feedback system. The reason Lee's training was so efficient was that he turned every movement into an experiment, while others were just repeating motions. He was collecting data. He would observe exactly which muscles used too much force, or if his weight shifted by even a millimeter. This extreme awareness is how you build a sensitive feedback loop. To innovate in any field, you must build a similar system. Many people love making long-term plans, but a plan is essentially a set of assumptions about the future, and assumptions are the enemies of a clear mind. High performers do the opposite. They focus on small, rapid cycles of trial and error. Instead of trying to predict the wind, they become sensors that are incredibly sensitive to it. When feedback comes in, whether it is good or bad, you must adjust instantly. The key here is to drop your ego. Most people get defensive when they receive negative feedback. This is because they are still clinging to a fixed identity. They see feedback as an attack rather than a data correction. But if you can clear your ego, you will see that every failure is just an objective signal. It is simply telling you that one specific path is blocked. When you view your life through this lens of objective physics, you've already moved past 90% of your competition. This leads us to a deeper concept called active decentralization. There is a commander in your brain who issues orders based on the past. The art of the reset requires you to fire that commander. You need to let your senses speak directly to your environment. In his training, Lee used a technique called sticky hands. Two people keep their arms in contact and must feel the flow of energy without looking. If the opponent pushes, you neutralize it. If they pull back, you follow. Your brain does not have time to think. If you stop to wonder which move to use, you have already lost. This immediate reaction is what we call expert intuition. In a professional setting, this feels like total immersion. When you are navigating a difficult negotiation or writing complex code, you stop recalling textbook rules. You are simply flowing with the logic of the moment. This is the flow state. And the only way to get there is to empty your mind of distractions and preset ideas. So, how can you actually train this? To keep this practical, I have broken the logic down into 5 actionable steps. Step 1 is terminology stripping. From now on, try to describe your work without using any industry jargon. If you are a product manager, do not talk about iterations. Say, I am observing how people live and trying to make it easier. When you strip away the fancy words, you force your brain to return to the origin of the task. Step 2 is reverse assumption training. Every day, before making a decision, ask yourself, what if the opposite were true? If you are convinced a project will fail, force yourself to list 3 logical reasons why it might succeed. This is about breaking the one-way street in your brain. Step 3 is keeping a micro-observation journal. Record tiny, specific details. For example, notice how a client's eyes moved when you mentioned a specific price point. This trains your senses to jump out of the cage of second-hand information and touch the real world. Step 4 is active exposure to the unknown. Bruce Lee studied ballet and philosophy because his martial arts logic did not work there. It forced him to reset. You should regularly step into a field completely unrelated to your own. This cross-pollination is the fastest way to clear mental sludge. Step 5 is the disintegration of the self. You must learn to observe the thinking that is you. When you are angry or stubborn, pull yourself back. Watch that emotional version of yourself like a character in a movie. Ask, what are you actually protecting? Is it the facts or just your pride? When you can objectively observe yourself, you gain the power to turn off the old system at any time. Ultimately, Bruce Lee's art of clearing the mind is about becoming free. As he wrote in his notes, once you let go of all prejudices, you realize there are no masters and no secret manuals. There are only simple truths that have been there all along. Innovation is not about inventing something new. It is about discovering what was ignored by everyone else. But to discover it, you have to throw those outdated, heavy frameworks into the trash. When you complete this reset again and again, you stop following styles because you become the style. You stop imitating success because you are creating it. This process is long and often painful. It requires you to constantly deny your past self. But believe me, only when you dare to break yourself down can you rebuild a self that is truly unbreakable. Like a drop of water joining the ocean, you lose your small shape, but you gain the power of the entire sea. I hope today's session gives you the spark to start your own reset. Starting today, put down those heavy bags and move forward with light. You will find that the world is much wider and much more interesting than you ever imagined. That is it for today. I'll see you next time.